All right, we're going to get going here. Today I've got a brand new guest on the Foul Pole to Foul Pole podcast. He's the head coach of Hardin-Simmons University, Coach Casey Wilson. Man, I really do appreciate you joining me today.
You bet. You bet. Happy to be here.
Awesome, man. I know you are super busy getting ready for the season to start. When exactly is you guys' first game?
February 16th. It's Friday evening, and then we play Friday and Saturday. We'll play and start out at Centenary and Shreveport, and then we'll be at University of Dallas on that Saturday.
You guys have got to be excited for that. I mean, are they ready to get on the field now and start playing, or are they still kind of getting tuned up?
No, I think over the break they did a good job of staying in condition. They're as far as what I've seen so up until now that there hasn't been any injuries and we've been kind of moving along. We've had a little more time, so we've kind of been pacing ourselves, but so far so good.
Yeah, last year you took over at Hardin-Simmons. Kind of take me through some of the challenges that come with, you know, replacing a coach, being sort of the new face, and trying to get everyone to buy into your philosophy, and kind of take me through that a little bit.
Well, it's the first time. I mean, I started a program and then I had got, back when I was at ACU, I helped kind of restart a program not to a degree of kind of revamping a program. This is a little bit different, but one thing was nice about coming here is that the team was there's plenty of talent, great group of girls. So I mean, there are a lot of times you go into a situation where you're already kind of loaded up. And I mean, no, and it seemed like my vision and their vision seemed to be pretty aligned. Um, Again, I just really had to take it all in and observe them during the course of the fall and kind of get to know them. And then as I'm still doing that now, but yeah, it's been a good experience so far, and it hasn't been rough at all, other than just kind of learning people and getting caught up.
Yeah. It's got to be pretty awesome to sit there and just sort of take it all in and watch the leaders sort of come to the top and be leaders on the field. How excited are you right now, knowing that you're just a couple of weeks away and you get to see these athletes take and put all that work they put into it actually get out there and start to shine?
No, I'm super excited, and I know that these players, they were up in the top 25 last year at one point, and I think they realized what they had, and they're really set on not having that happen again this year. Just mainly kind of have taken that approach of at one day at a time, and and like I said, just being appreciating the group that we have, and to make sure we get the most out of it.
Yeah. Last year, like you said, they had a pretty good year. What are some of the goals that they're taking from last year's team and putting forth this year? Sort of take that next step, if you will.
I was asking him over the course of the time I've been here about what's set, what's the difference between you and the other teams in the conference, and I think a lot of them just came down to basically execution, discipline. Those are two things they felt that the teams that were up at the top of our conference did a great job of executing, and their discipline and their approach. And they felt that they could be there, but that's something that they know where they need to be, strive to be a little better at.
Right. You know, as these seniors are getting into their last year and they're going to take that field for the last time at some point this year, all that hard work that they put in there being student athletes kind of comes to a head. It gives you this sense of accomplishment that, hey, I was able to compete, play the college level for X amount of years or whatever. You know, take me through these players, and you've coached for a lot of years, and when they finally play their last game and when that kind of moment happens to them, that sense of being proud of them, how does that hit you as a coach?
No, I try to, when they first get to college, I try to and remind them that this goes by fast, and to appreciate, because I hear a lot from a lot of athletes that I used to have on teams, said I wish that I would have appreciated more in the moment while I was doing it, as opposed to maybe kind of hoping it went by quick. But a lot of these players have put in a lot of work, and even with this whole COVID, it gave some players an extra year,
Mhm.
And I think some people are thankful, and I could even see how the gratefulness a lot of them have to have this extra year. And then the focus they've been able to put in for that has been great. And I still don't even know. I mean, I still feel like we have a lot of seniors on this team, but it seems to me like there could be a lot of them still coming back again next year, from what I understand. So I may not have as many last year players as I thought, but I do have quite a bit of experience on this team, and that's very good to have.
Yeah. You know, I can't remember, the last time I was able to play competitively, and I know that I didn't want it to stop, and it got to that moment where I didn't want it to go to that next level. For me, I would want to continue playing as long as I could before I had to get out into the real world. But talk to me a little bit about the pressures that they do have being student athletes and going through it, year after year, and that commitment that they have to make when it's time to be a student athlete.
Yeah, and yeah, there's the different levels. I had been, this is my third level of coaching. I'd coached, at ACU before I was at Division 2, and then we moved to Division 1. This is Division 3. I know in the off season here at Division 3, they have a little bit more time on their hands to focus on studies. But but again, something that I saw over the last 5, 10 years or so is you can't. This has got to be a focus. School and in softball, it can't be just a hobby.
Yeah.
If this is a hobby, then you're going to get passed by, even if you scholarship or no scholarship. So I mean, I think the pressures that they have on them, it just depends a lot of times on how they handle themselves in their free time. If they can manage their day, then a lot of them are fine. And even to manage their day, how they eat, and make sure they have enough time, to come out here and perform. But the ones that maybe they get behind in school, or the ones that aren't eating well, then a lot of times that comes to a head, whether they get sick, or it just things get a little overwhelming for them, and then that can affect them on the field and all across the board.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I think is the biggest challenges for freshmen coming in is that time management. And as coaches on the staff, how do you help your athletes when they do get there for the first time and they have to understand, hey, time management is one of your top priorities?
No, it is, and it's funny, I'd coached in soccer all these years. It was a fall sport, so if freshmen would come in and they'd already be on a pretty disciplined schedule, so that would help them right away. And then a lot of times I found in the spring when they had a little more free time is that's when they had to learn about time management.
Yeah.
Where here, I think that, as a fall sport, you've got to we have practices, but I think again it's just kind of reminding them about, kind of daily on what they need to do to, I like I said, I'm lucky there too. I feel like that there's a lot of responsible, girls in this team, so I haven't really had to delve into that too much. But if anybody ever has problems managing their day, they have teammates to look to, and they can have, ultimately have coaches to help them. But I happen to be at a place too where, like this team seems to be very academically high achieving. So it has been nice to not have to really kind of crack the whip on the academic side of things.
What's a day let's talk about before the season really gets going. You might be doing some workouts and doing some individual stuff like that. What's a day like that look? And then take me through a day when you're in season and you're practicing up until that first game. And then I'm sure the schedule changes again for you guys. So what's it like off season prepping?
In the off season, we only have in Division 3, you only have 114 days that you can practice. So if it's not a day, then you can't be working out with them. But if it is a day, there could be hitting groups in the morning. Our baseball team just got a brand new hitting facility that's awesome, and so we've been able to go in there in the mornings and do some extra hitting, and then carry that out into the afternoon. Um, but that's also been nice to be able to have that. So then that's a place for them to be able to go to, and the off time to work on things when, not. And we also have a cage in our back here in the back of our building, but just to be able to, mainly it was kind of more so giving them the tools to be able the training tools help themselves when, when we can't be in there holding their hand a little bit in the cage.
Yeah. What do you do during the season? What's sort of your routine that's kind of worked for you over the years, or something that you may have changed up this year going into it because it works with this team as you guys are in season and practicing?
Well, I found, and I said, regardless of the sport, a lot of times when you after you play a couple games, the next week at practice, you may focus on the things that maybe that you didn't do as well.
Yeah.
And again, and one of the big things that, I'm not the only one that probably preaches this, is it's basics. You gotta be able to not don't forget the basics of the things you do, because those are the things a lot of times when everything kind of hits the fan, a lot of times you go back the next week and you got to just go through the basics of stuff. You got to we talked the other day about just not giving the other team, having unforced errors. When they give you a gift, you take it, and making sure that you're as clean and efficient and as you can be, and execute when you can, take chances. But ultimately, the thing that you have to in softball is you can't give things away. There's too many times that one gift will lead to five other ones down the same inning. So it's just one of those things that, but again, just kind of mainly keeping them grounded as far as just keeping them keeping everything based on the fundamentals of the game, and you could always go back to that when things are kind of going up and down.
Man, I know you're getting excited for it. Aside from wins and losses, take me into sort of your vision for this year and what is going to be a successful year for you. Just not with the wins and losses, but something else that you're kind of keying on, and you've sort of set maybe a personal goal for the team.
Well, I mean, I don't know how tangible this goal is. I mean, if we're not going on numbers, but I'm really, as a coach, I'm trying to really see if I can get every one of these girls to kind of reach their own potential. You know, I've got uh 7 and 9-year-old daughters right now, and I also have 20-year-old sophomores and college sons. But I've found that I could mold my daughter's swing, since she's young and hasn't been through it as much, and she can. But then sometimes it's a little more difficult to go in and kind of not change somebody, but see if you can kind of lead them in the right direction to kind of make reach them. If there's a good athlete that you're trying to figure out how they're going to be there at their best, I really want to. My goal is to unlock that in everyone, and I'll definitely have been spending a lot of extra time with those that I feel have it. And then if they're willing to put in the time and work on it, and even if there's failure at first, if they had to struggle for a while to get where they need to be, then they can take that into consideration, as opposed to just maybe doing it a certain way, and just maybe, if someone's okay with being a 200 hitter, doing it their way, then that's one of those things that kind of plays itself out.
Right.
But as a team, I know, and then pitching wise, um, I know that these young ladies also are working on diversifying the pitches they throw, speeds, and different things like that. So I think that there's a lot of potential there, and a lot of, we have 7 pitchers right now, and they're very different,
Mhm.
and I think they all can complement each other in different ways. So, but ultimately, for me, it's going to be about pulling the right strings, and then making sure we can stay engaged throughout the entire season at a certain level, without having any kind of extremes up and downs.
That leads me into my next point that I was going to ask you about how the game has shifted, going from having one or two just, aces, and then that was kind of like your staff, and you had other pitchers that were either waiting their turn or whatever, however you want to explain it. But now it seems like more and more schools are going to bigger pitching staffs that complement each other and sort of work well with each other, where you have a mix, like all the bases are covered on different styles of pitchers, where you have someone that throws gas with a rise ball that moves, or you have someone that spins it around 60 miles an hour. So, as a coach, how do you go about pulling the right strings and making sure, A, they're getting their time because, they deserve it, or they're just as good, or you really can't just pick one and say, hey, this is my ace?
Yeah, I mean, in the past, when the teams that I had been with at ACU, we didn't maybe we had at the most 4 or 5 pitchers at the most. This is a little different, and I think in a way that if you can kind of go with the baseball mentality,
Mhm.
is to see maybe if you can, you can mix it up. You go from a hard throwing to someone might be throwing a little softer or a drop ball, or just ways that maybe that you even can get through an inning. If you could get 3 good innings 2 times through a lineup with one, maybe you can go with another one that can get you through maybe 2 more. So I mean, there's always I feel like this group could possibly we could piece things together, especially down the road when we're getting down to the thick of things. Maybe we could even be fresher down the road. But I think if they can all take their kind of their role, to heart. I think that's, just like any, whether it's players coming off the bench to hit or their pitchers, if they can take their role, seriously, and when their time is called, they could step up. I mean, that'd be a big thing that's with this team down the road.
Yeah, I think when it comes to recruiting right now with these high school athletes, um, they come from teams, travel ball teams, and probably high school teams too, for the most part, with rosters of like 10, 11 girls. And they're not used to competing for that spot or being one of five pitchers. So when you're going through your recruiting process and trying to find a right fit for you as a coach, I don't care what the school is really at this point, just as a coach, being able to look at someone that you could potentially bring to your team, what do you look for in that mentality side? Someone that can be a good teammate.
Yeah, the teammate thing, and and like if it's, sometimes a new coach might come in and just overhaul a team, but then I had to kind of even slam the brakes a little bit because we have so many players right now, and we have some players coming in. So the players that may be coming in the 24, 25, 26, we can be a lot more selective there and make sure that we're trying to even go above and beyond what we've got here to make sure that we're just not adding numbers but quality on that end. But that's it's tough to manage a big roster. I mean, on the soccer side of it, I've sometimes had over 30 players, and it's rough when you're a lot of times when you're only using about 16, 17 at the very most. So keeping everybody happy is tough, but somewhere down the line we'll see how we can kind of shift that. And also too, it's about transparency, making sure that the players that do come in 100% know that that there's a lot of players here and there's not going to be any surprises.
Right. You know, before you and I sat down, we were able to talk, whatever, I could tell you are a family oriented person through and through. And I think that kind of bleeds into your coaching style and who you are. How does your family affect the way that you coach?
Well, my sons didn't, they didn't play a lot of sports, and so they, their competing was more in like sport science Olympiads and different things like that.
Mhm.
I mean, now not to mean that I mean they're competitive in school, but for me it was, I with them being little and coaching all these years, and then also to the approach that I take with my daughters is more of a development approach. I'm coaching. I've been helping coach I have a 10U team, and I've been helping. I helped a little bit last year with another team, but ultimately at this age, you got to teach them how to play the game and also build them up and get their confidence up.
Mhm.
Because to be quite honest with you, I've seen a lot of bad things in these last 2 years of 8U, 10U, and to the point where I don't sometimes know why kids would continue playing, with the amount of pressure and abuse that they can take from an adult as they're just trying to learn the game.
Yeah.
And so that's my thing is that I'm they're gonna have plenty of time in their future to really ramp up the pressure and the competitiveness.
Yeah.
But when they're 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, they're still learning, and you gotta be kind of a steward and ambassador of that game and
Yeah.
really kind of make them love it as opposed to, by the time they're 12, like, I'm done. And that's, and or even sometimes that people may get to their end of the rope where they may their parents are really hoping for a scholarship when they're a senior in high school, and they're like, I did my time.
Mhm.
I'm done. I'm just going to go to college, and I'm not going to play anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I see it all the time too. I'm here on the East Coast in South Carolina, and I don't know a whole lot of rec departments that still offer softball. There are some. I posted out the other day. I wanted to find out what rec leagues were still around throughout the country, and there are some that are thriving, and it is good to read. And you'll see it like, we have 60 teams last year, and we've already signed up, 65 this year, and we're looking forward to it, and this and that. And I'm loving that. And then you'll see it where it just doesn't go anymore. It's all travel ball based now. Everybody wants to pay a whole bunch of money to travel 30 minutes down the road to play the same five teams you just played last weekend. So it to me, I don't know if there's a right answer if it ever get back to that um development over winning. But man, these little $3 rings and $3 medals or whatever, so mamas and daddies can post on social media that little Susie won the copper bracket. They didn't win a game, but they were the only team down there, so we gave them a medal. Um, what is your perspective on playing so much competitive ball at an early age and that burnout? So when you get them, these athletes that when they get to college, they have these burnout type injuries, or they're just mentally drained when they get to the college level.
Since my sons didn't really go through that, I'm kind of at this time right now with my daughters kind of going through that. If I could speak to even how I grew up, I mean, I grew up in Southern California and I played soccer and baseball. And so, and I went back and forth. I mean, it was more of, like you said, a rec league where you played soccer in the fall and baseball in the spring, soccer in the fall, baseball in the spring. And then I think when I got into fifth grade, there was travel soccer. And I didn't even play in a pony select league until I was 13. And then I ended up getting into kicking, and so I ended up playing soccer, football, and baseball in high school.
Mm.
But I think that was good for my brain because I didn't get tired of just doing one. I kind of use different muscles. I used my brain differently, and I was when soccer was over, I was in great shape for baseball, and I was always hitting during soccer season. And so I'm trying to, even though my daughter has been playing some soccer, and then she's really loves softball. We're really trying to make sure that she plays other sports too. And maybe even at this point, maybe not trying to jump, you know, with both feet into softball to the point where that's all she's doing. And I think that it'd be better for her, psychologically down the road, both of them to be able to do other things, because I think they're still, if as long as if we keep the development going into the softball, they could be fine playing soccer and taking a little bit of time off from that as well. So those are different things that you look at. But I'm a big believer in playing multi sports because, I'm out, like if I'm out at coaching a soccer practice and I'm trying to talk to them about, striking a ball you're playing golf. They don't, then if sudden none of them's played ever golf. And
Exactly.
then you mean you can't ever talk about different sports because they don't really can't relate to that or this or that. But since I'm someone who grew up, I love playing golf and tennis also. Those are different things that you can incorporate into being a better baseball player, all the other sports that you did.
I'm
So,
big into using analogies, and I do some hitting instruction here, and I'll throw something out there, and the kid has no idea what I'm talking about because they've been playing nothing but softball since they were 8 years old. And even it's just like, yeah, hey, let's not make this a golf swing here. Let's not go down and get it and just throw everything down there. It's like, have you ever played golf before, or if you ever played tennis before? And they're like, no. And it throws me back to when I was little. It didn't matter like what time of year it was. There was some sport you were playing. Like as boys, if it was the NBA season, we were playing basketball. If it was football season, we were playing football. Same thing with baseball until I got into wrestling. But everything sort of dropped off as I started to focus more and more on wrestling. I think I stopped everything else but wrestling my ninth grade year because that's the only sport that I did. But during the other time, I would still be playing pickup football and pickup basketball and stuff like that. But I focused on that. And of course, I never stepped on a wrestling mat again. I got sold a bill of goods by the Marine Corps recruiter from a wrestling match. He said, "Hey man, you ever thought about wrestling in the Marine Corps?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely." 2 weeks later, they were at my house, and I signed up for the delayed entry program, and never stepped on a mat again. So I don't want that to happen to the athletes that I talk with, and I try to tell them get into something else. It's okay to play a different sport, and we say that as coaches, but then we don't offer them the time to actually do that. We get mad if they miss a practice. And for now, I don't know when it changed, but it seems like softball plays 13 months out of the year now.
No, they do. They do. I mean, around here in Abilene, we have a fall ball league, and then it really heats up in the spring and summer. So you can play all year long, all year long.
What do you see right now is probably your biggest concern in youth coaching? It doesn't really matter the sport. What is the biggest concern that you have with what you see is going on? Maybe it's a problem and maybe there's a solution, or maybe there's not a solution, but there's something that you see that maybe we as a society need to fix.
Well, I mean, I think that you're putting the cart before the horse a lot of times, and like I said, you coaching young kids too, is that we need to stop focusing on winning when you're young. I mean, it could be a good byproduct of things, but you've got to take more of your satisfaction out of the development side. Get excited that even if you lost 5-0, but hey, you threw three people out it from short and third today. You caught some pop-ups, you made some contact or whatever. It just get excited about the development of the whole thing, and instead of just rolling the ball out there, and then and yelling at them when they don't perform because they don't know how to do stuff. That's the thing that I have been irritated with this
Mhm.
past couple of years is that it's like it's all cart before the horse. You got to teach them how to do it first.
Yeah, I agree, man. I see there's so many teams that pop up now. And I appreciate the coaches that are out there because I was the same way. I got into it for what I thought was the right reasons to give someone a place to play. But I started out in the rec league. I knew that they would need volunteer help and stuff like that. So I volunteered a couple years before I actually said, "Hey, I'll be the head coach of this." And before I left Maryland, my a buddy of mine, we coached together. One of us was the head coach for the older team. One of us was the head coach for the younger team. We ran practices differently. We played games differently. We did that, but we taught them the same way because we're talking 8 to 9 year olds and then 11 and 13-year-olds. There's not a big difference when you're talking about the skill set and the fundamentals and the basics and stuff like that. It just came down to birth certificates. And I know that rec department is still doing great. I still talk to those folks up there. And I miss those days when it was playing just to play. And nowadays it just seems like, man, doesn't matter how we get the win, let's just get the win.
Right. Yeah. If you wanna have 40 pass balls, and that's how you win a game versus 35. I mean, people really enjoy winning that way sometimes.
Yeah, before we get out of here on this, and I do have to ask you if you have one piece of advice for this young athlete that is looking to mix playing college softball into their future with their education. What is one piece of advice that you could give them?
Well, something I've been telling athletes for a number of years is you really got to love you got to love the sport. And if you love it, then you'll work on it. And then you'll take pride in it. But if you don't, then you're going to resent it and then you're not going to like it. And also too, and I tell this to my daughter all the time. I always say is that if she's pretty good about wanting to go out and practice on her own, but if there's ever a period of time when she doesn't want to, I'll say, guys, then do not get upset. I'm not going to feel sorry for you if you're not where you are because you're not out there working after it. So things aren't just going to happen.
Yeah.
And I think that's where, sometimes college athletes get to a program after they got their scholarship and they just waiting for them just to be selected to be put on the field instead of them earning it. But that's the thing is if you love it and you want to put the work into it, there's going to be a level for you to play. I mean, whether it's Division 3 junior college, Division 1, Division 2, there's going to be somewhere where you can play. But
Right.
but like I said, you just got to be able to put the time in, but it all starts from the love of it. And then as coaches, um, we want them to teach them to love the game and want them to come back versus them just saying, no way, had a bad experience. I'm never coming back.
Yeah. How cool is it to see one of your players come back and be a coach?
No, it is great because sometimes you can see it in them when you have them, and so it is nice and I feel like even around the team right now, there's about I want to say over 3 to 4 I could think of off the top of my head that'll probably be real good coaches, but I see them as more like they're students of the game. They want to learn, and then there's the ones that are just extremely talented, but they don't know why they're so
Yeah,
good. But they're the ones that may struggle, if they ever get into teaching kids. But that's just sometimes the way it is.
right. Well, Coach, I appreciate you taking the time today. I hope I didn't take up too much of your time, and I wish you nothing but good luck this season. And I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Yeah, you bet. Appreciate you having me.
Yes, sir.